Welcome to episode 6 of Rewind Heroes. I'm your co-host, Greg Compton.
And I'm your other co-host, Dan Gaines. This is going to be your weekly video podcast where we talk everything that we think is cool in movie, music, television, just about anything in that world.
Pretty much anything that is awesome. And so we've got some news stories this week. We're going to be taking a little vacation this week. And also, just so you guys know, we're shooting this a little earlier than normal. So and we hope to release it a little earlier, but if we don't, and some news breaks the day before you watch this and you wonder why we didn't cover it, that's why. We just had to fit in filming with our schedules. So should we get started with some newsreel?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to the newsreel. Guess what, Dan?
What's that?
It's another week, and we have yet another Episode 8 title rumor. So The Force Awakens hasn't even hit Blu-ray, but we have yet another rumor circulating about what Episode 8 will be called. Now, last week, you might remember that we told you about the title Tale of the Jedi Temple. Well, now this week, we have another rumor coming from a Croatian website claiming the title is The Order of the Dark Side. All right, so Dan, what are your thoughts on The Order of the Dark Side?
Well, first off, comparing the two, I love this new title way more than The Tale of the Jedi Temple. The Order of the Dark Side to me sounds like the new reboot version of The Empire Strikes Back. It falls right into this world. We know this is going to be the darker toned episode. And what I always like to look at, because to me, you got to look at this as 9 movies. And with the one with the Jedi Temple, you've had Return of the Jedi, and to have that then just be 2 movies where the word Jedi's in the title bothers me.
Right.
I like to see them all on a shelf and you're seeing what it looks like. We've never used the word dark side in a title.
Right.
And obviously the First Order is the new empire, if you will. So for me, I love it. What do you think?
I think that's good, and I also like the fact that, Dark Side juxtaposes with Force Awakens.
Yep.
So I think that works because, Star Wars, then you had your second one, Empire Strikes Back, and then you even had the god-awful Attack of the Clones, but it was kind of, you had this middle story that was, because the story is probably the darkest one, or one of the darker ones. I guess Revenge of the Sith was probably the darkest, but you know what I mean? You take that dip in the middle of each trilogy where stuff starts to go downhill. So I think it's actually a very good title. And like I mentioned before, Temple kind of put a place, and we don't really see that. So I think this is good.
Specific, I think the other one was. This was just an overall feel, and I think that it gets you ready for what you know you're going into a dark movie.
Yeah, it's very much
title.
Ideology is really what it is.
Very much
I think that's great. So what else do we have on doc?
Who are you going to call? Last week, Sony Pictures revealed the first full trailer for Ghostbusters. Although the opening of the Ghostbusters trailer seems to hint that the new film picks up 30 years after the original, director Kevin Feige was quick to remind that the new film is indeed a reboot. Feige also promises multiple versions of Ray Parker Jr.'s classic song, as well as numerous shout-outs to existing Ghostbusters lore. So Greg, after checking out the new trailer, what's your kind of initial thoughts?
We knew they were rebooting this with an all-female cast, and for what we saw, knowing that that's what we were going to be expecting, I thought it was great. I really am pumped to see this. To me, the one thing is, the trailer starts with 30 years ago, but there's no real connection. So it's like they're letting the youngins know, hey, there was this movie called Ghostbusters before. That kind of irked me. And the other thing is, if you're going to, a couple things. I'm actually okay with this because a lot of people wanted the original cast. Well, ever since Harold Ramis passed away, that was not an option. So then that made a reboot seem better to me, more okay.
Yeah.
I would have liked this though if you, and I know that some of the people like Dan Aykroyd are probably going to have some cameos, maybe one's a cab driver, things like that. I would have liked it better if they had passed the baton, even if you had a couple of them.
100%.
Maybe one was Aykroyd or Ramis's maybe like a student or something like that, scientist protege, and then they bring in their friends. Yep. So I'm fine with the female reboot. I just wish that there had been that direct tie-in, but it looks fun, and the effects for the ghosts they have the glow and stuff to keep true to the original, but it's not taking the effects too far, at least from what I've seen. So I'm excited.
I agree, and it was cool to see Slimer make an appearance in the trailer. I'm totally on board with the casting, and I think that if they were doing an all-female cast, they have some really good ones in there. I agree, though. I think that, to me, they are saying that it's clearly a reboot, but then they kind of send mixed emotions with this whole 30 years later type thing. Yeah. So, to me, they should have almost owned it as a sequel. I agree with you that instead of having Dan Aykroyd just as this random cab driver where we're nodding our cap at what they did, I think it would have been awesome if it was a direct sequel. Why not? It could have just been kind of like we're seeing with a lot of movies anyway today. It's new sequels, but then still tying in some of this older stuff. So, but overall, the movie looks great. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun and a good summer blockbuster film.
One hidden gem on there, I don't know if you noticed it.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Ghostbusters, they have the traps.
Yep.
Did you notice the trap in the shot? There's a quick shot, and I don't know if it's the one. There is this thing that looks like a bear trap.
Okay.
It just, boom, closed.
I did see that.
I'm like, have they developed, like, instead of the box that slides in and open, is it something that's going to kind of like look like a bear trap? That would be kind of cool.
That is cool. I didn't really think about that.
It was kind of large and clunky, so it might not be what they used, but either way, I thought that's kind of a nice little take on it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, Greg, what do you have for us next?
All right, this one I am really excited about. So it looks like Big Hero 6 is actually getting a series that will be coming to Disney XD in 2017. So in production now, the Big Hero 6 series will pick up kind of where the film left off. Hero is enrolled at San Francisco Institute of Technology, and he's going to face academic challenges as well as all the social trials that come with being the little man on campus. But now off campus, the high-tech heroes are going to have to protect San Francisco from an array of scientifically enhanced villains. Before I give my take on that, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on Big Hero 6 in general.
First of all, when Big Hero 6 came out, it was one of those, Disney's on a hot streak, I think, especially with their animation. And so just by the look of the trailer, I was super excited to go check it out. And the movie did not disappoint. And you left the theater, I did anyway, wanting more. And I know we were going out, you're obviously thinking that they should make it into another sequel, movie. Right. But hearing that there's going to be a TV series, I think that gives them a lot of opportunity to do a lot of adventures, to truly develop the team. So overall, I think it's really exciting, and Disney XD's had some really good stuff here coming up.
I agree, and they've done a lot of good shows. I mean, from the Miles Tomorrowland, all this. I mean, I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, so Disney Junior and Disney XD are on my TV a lot. I took my oldest son to see this. We were in Cincinnati for a weekend, and one night we were trying to figure out something to do, so we went and saw this. I knew nothing about it other than it was a Disney movie, and there was this big Michelin Man looking guy.
Yeah.
And my wife and I, my son loved it. He was glued to it. My wife and I were just amazed, and it's kind of become one of my favorite Disney movies.
Cool.
But the thing was, I felt like, even though I believe it won a Best Animation, it still felt overshadowed by Frozen the year before.
I agree.
And to me, Frozen's a great movie. I like it. My kids even like it because of the music. But there is such a good message about Big Hero 6. It's okay to be smart. It's okay to be a bit of a geek. And I thought that's such a great message for kids, to set them up for success in life. Mm-hmm. And it was one where right at the end, you're like, oh, okay, now I'm ready. This was the origin story. Let's go further. Yep. And then you just get Planes 2 and Cars 2 and Cars 10 and whatever else. I'm like, no, do something with this series. And this is a perfect springboard for it. So I'm very excited for this show. If you haven't seen the original Big Hero 6, do yourself a favor, rent it, check it out. If you've got kids, they will love it. I think it's really just a wonderful show.
Yeah, so, 100% agree.
And I just want the design to stay true. I want it to look like it by going to a show that doesn't suffer. But so far, Disney hasn't really had that problem.
No, I haven't seen it to this point anyway.
Now, talking about sequels and things like that, I think we've got one more to talk about. What do you got, Dan?
Yeah, we've got a pretty crazy sequel to talk about. One of the most unusual movie ideas that was leaked during the 2014 terrorist hack on Sony Pictures was for a 23 Jump Street Men in Black crossover movie. Last week it was announced that the feature film is in fact moving forward with James Bobin in talks to direct. So Greg, I gotta ask, what do you think about this crazy idea?
This is both franchises are so out there. I think it'll work. These guys could fit perfectly into Men in Black because Will Smith was not the typical character that would be an agent. So It works. So you could bring these guys in, and it really is great. I told you before, I really enjoyed the Jump Street movies. My problem was I wish they just had a different name because I think it would have been cool to really do a serious Jump Street movie at some point. But, you had the Starsky and Hutch and the Dukes of Hazzard, which as a show was corny. But, you had this whole thing, let's take an idea from the 70s or 80s and let's make it wacky. And that's what they did. And it worked great for Jump Street. You just can't get that other. I digress. But I think adding it into Men in Black, I think it'll be perfect. I don't even know if Tommy Lee will be back. If you could get Will Smith, I mean, he's not doing any Independence Day films, so he might have the time. I think it would be good. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that, and I'll just leave with this, I don't even think Will Smith or Tommy Lee need to be in this for this to work. Like, I think that the movies are already off the wall, crazy, bizarre, and the fact that they had fun at the end of the credits of this last one with all these different sequels that were coming, Men in Black, and seeing these two characters thrown in that world, I think would be a lot of fun. I think that even if you just had Agent Z, who was always in charge of the Men in Black, just have that character who
Emma Thompson played Z last, and I think you've got to bring her back because I think she's perfect for it.
I agree. So, I don't know. I think it could work perfectly. And I think you can have a completely different kind of Men in Black movie that's probably going to be a little more crude than the other ones.
Right.
But I'm okay with that. I think they can make it a lot of fun.
And if you don't have those agents, just here's my thought, not that I wrote the film, but I think if you're not going to have agents, you got to figure out a way to put them into it. Maybe they stumble across some kind of battle with some Men in Black agents and some alien, and maybe those agents, not ones that we're attached to, they actually are killed. And maybe they get the weapons or whatever, and they actually, as crazy as it is and what they're seeing, they kind of hold their heads together and they take care of the issue and neutralize it. And maybe they're brought in by Z, who it says is the brain wipe. It realizes they actually handled the unbelievable pretty well, and they're in need of recruiting because they've had some retirements of a team. And maybe that's where you bring them in.
That would be cool.
And maybe you bring in Will Smith as like a
small
role.
If they're in it.
I'd like to see him as a little bit of a role though, which would be great. Maybe training them or something.
That would
like
be awesome.
Frustrated that he has to train new people. He comes in just for like a scene. I think that would be great. So
I do too.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll get the noisy cricket and have Jonah Hill involved with that. But just seeing, hopefully we get to see Ice Cube assigning them to the Men in Black.
Oh, that would be great. Well, I think that covers the news. Now we need to go take a little vacation to a desert island. You're stuck on a deserted island.
Am I?
For some reason, you have a Blu-ray player that has endless energy. So the thing is, but yet you can't signal SOS. Whatever. What movies do you want to watch over and over and over again while you're on this deserted island? So we have picked the Rewind Heroes Deserted Dozen. That's 12 films, 6 Dan chose, 6 I chose. Not our greatest films of all time, but what are the ones we could just sit and watch over and over and over again without being tired of it?
So before we show you that list, to kind of give you an idea of the criteria, we can only select one film per franchise, each list. So before we did anything, we had to kind of identify, okay, if you're picking one from this franchise, what am I picking? So, Greg.
Yes.
What's your first movie?
Now, this first movie is also my favorite movie of all time, so this would fit on any list.
Okay.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's a great one.
There's something about this film to me which is the perfect film. Harrison Ford is just top notch, everything. I mean, I remember watching this and every kid, I think, grabbed their baseball cap or whatever else and just thought they were, whatever you could find, rope, whatever, that was your whip, you were Indiana Jones. It's a perfect movie. I love the franchise. I love almost all of the films in the franchise, really. But that one just... Exactly. And even then, that was better than no Indiana Jones at all, I kind of thought, that summer. But,
It's debatable.
Yeah, it was not my favorite. Raiders of the Lost Ark was just, that's number one for me. What do you have?
Well, to kind of play off of that, then, I would have to put Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This was a movie that the relationship between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford was absolutely perfect. The way they bantered, and it made it a different tone for Indiana Jones, but it worked perfectly. So I'd have to have that in my list because I could watch that movie over and over again.
Oh yeah, I mean the deprecating humor, it's great. I loved it. I mean I love that film. So then I had to decide, I'm a huge James Bond fan. There are a lot of Bond movies to choose from. And I can't, so it's like which one are you gonna go with? And I love Sean Connery. This is my favorite Bond. I like so many of them for different things. Different films. So what am I going with? I'm going for the first one that really struck me. After I became a Bond fan, the first one I saw in the theaters was GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, his first one. I think I saw that 6 times in the movie theater because I became a fan and there was that argument on if Bond was ever going to come back. There was a legal battle, so 6 years had drawn out. This was the first time I got to see the gun barrel sequence in a movie theater. And he kind of straddles that line of the Connery humor, but a little bit of dangerousness that Daniel Craig has. So, I mean, just honestly, probably because that was just a memorable moment for me when that came out. I'm going to go with Goldeneye, and it's fun. Sean Bean is the villain, 006, and it's a physical villain, not just mental. So he's a match for Bond. It's great. That's going to be my Bond choose.
Good. Well, for me, this is going to be my favorite movie of all time. So this would fit on either list, and that's Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, is there a better movie that's more character-driven, that has the drama, maybe the biggest cinematic reveal in movie history? I think this movie has a little bit of everything, plus the introduction of Yoda. This, to me, is up here, and every other movie is below. It's on a different scale for me. I could have probably put every Star Wars as far as on this list, but if I had to select one, that one's top of my list.
That is a great film. It would be on mine. That's why we're just kind of putting this together. So many of these our list would have been so similar.
Absolutely.
That's why we kind of blended these. Now I'm going to throw in a Star Wars film for myself.
Okay.
I'm not doing the original one.
Okay.
Mine, because we're talking rewatchability here, I'm going to go with Force Awakens. Why? Because I haven't seen it as many times.
Sure.
So there's that. Plus, it's got that nostalgia factor that you're building off the original characters, and we've introduced new characters we love, from the humans to BB-8. And so I think it's a nice mix. And if we're already got Empire here, got a little old, let's put it a little new, and we'll go with Force Awakens.
That's perfect. So this next one for me is probably one of the most influential movies for me growing up, and that's Jurassic Park, the original. I still remember I was 6 years old when when Jurassic Park came out, and I to this day remember sitting in that theater and just not believing what I was seeing. And all of it, I mean, going in, the merchandising, I mean, I had all the Jurassic Park toys. It was a movie that really left an imprint on me. And I even remember this being one of the first DVDs I owned, and all the bonus features and how they made these scenes that I watched when I was just a kid, how they brought that to life. I mean, it was just an impactful movie on me. And to this day, I mean, Jurassic World, can't pick it for this list.
Oh, but it's up there.
It's still right up there, so that would be on my list.
I agree. I mean, this came out when I was 93?
Yep.
So it was either, depending on what part of the year that came out, and I was either 8th grade or freshman year. And so that's one of those movies, I mean, I work in television, and that's one of those things that really made me want to work in TV or film or anything Spielberg, really. But that huge impact. Well, another thing that I love, you love as well, is baseball. And what better baseball movie than Field of Dreams?
Awesome.
I mean, this is just a wonderful movie, the father-son aspect, just everything about it. It fires on all cylinders, and it just, like baseball, it's just comfortable. And I love it. If it's on TV, I stop and I watch it every time. So Field of Dreams is perfect.
Definitely. Well, the next movie kind of goes along that. If it's on TV, I stop every time, and that's Back to the Future. I love seeing Marty McFly going on his adventure, meeting Doc Brown. This thing was one of those. To me, it's hard to even put Back to the Future because it's one of those franchises. It's kind of like the Star Wars original trilogy. I love to watch them all, and to me, it adds so much to the experience. Yeah, the second one and third aren't nearly as good, but just for the whole story arc and how they connect everything, it makes it a movie experience, and that's
pretty heavy duty.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the reasons I love that, though, is just the way they tie everything together. It's one of the first movies I'd really seen that done.
Yeah, the first movie is so iconic. Yes. To me, I could take or leave the second two, honestly. But the first one, we will agree, I'm sold on that. I love that so much. Now, this other one that I have is kind of more an indie film. Some people know it. If you've ever heard the term, "You're so money," this is where it came from. I'm going with Swingers because you need a little comedy when you're sitting there on the desert island.
You gotta laugh.
Written by Jon Favreau, directed by Doug Liman, but Favreau had a huge hand in it. Vince Vaughn is in it, and he's firing on all cylinders. It's my favorite Vince Vaughn movie.
Yeah, he's great.
I love this movie because it came out when I was in college. It's the guys' movie, going out, having a good time, how you deal with love lives. The other thing, the music, the setup. It's all in LA, Hollywood area, and when you start talking about music. I mean, they had Big Bad Voodoo Daddy was here, and it kind of helped springboard the whole neo swing movement, and I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I wish it stuck around. So to me, if you haven't seen Swingers, do yourself a favor. It is a little dated now when you watch it, but it is so much fun.
Oh, the writing in it's great.
Oh,
he introduced me to that movie probably a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
And if you're a hockey fan like me, the scene with the Sega Genesis and they're playing the hockey games, and it's like, look, I'm going to make little Wayne's head bleed, and he's doing the little thing, and it's so great. I always say that. They're doing the thing. No one knows what I'm talking about. I need to get better about that, and I am sorry. No, it's a great movie. So many good one-liners. Check it out. It also has a young Heather Graham in it as the love interest at the end. It's great. It's great. What else you got?
So this is always kind of my unofficial movie of the summer, and what better movie to be stranded on an island to kind of keep you there than Jaws. Probably poor choice to be on a deserted island, but you know what? It's a great film. It is. And it's one of those, it's kind of a traditional thing for me. Every summer, when the pool is open, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I love to put that movie in, and I watch it every summer. And I usually even watch it around Discovery Channel's Shark Week, because to me, it just feels when I'm watching Jaws, I'm ready. I'm ready to be outside. It's warm weather. But this movie's amazing. I mean, obviously it's Spielberg's first. I actually loved, after becoming a big fan of that film, learning about the struggles that went into making that movie. Just one quick little thing. That was the first movie Steven Spielberg actually did not stick around for his last shot. The movie was a complete nightmare to shoot. So the last shot of the film, Spielberg was not there, and to this very day, he misses the last shot on every film, which I think is pretty cool. But Jaws, I will put it on every list I ever create because I could watch that thing 100 different times.
And it's a great movie because they had so many production nightmares. The shark didn't work, so all of a sudden, it's a valuable lesson for filmmakers that sometimes less is more, and building up the idea
that movie
versus
wouldn't have worked if, I think his name was Brutus, the shark. If he was in there like they wanted, that movie probably wouldn't have been as big of a hit as it was.
I don't think so, and it's funny, he's friends with George Lucas, and I think when Lucas went and redid the prequels, and he had every tool available to him, you can go overboard. And this was really making something great with what you have available. Absolutely. So I love it, and it works because we're on an island, we're gonna need a bigger boat. So another film that I would mention, love this movie, Gladiator. Ridley Scott's greatest film in my opinion. I love it. I was a history minor in college, so I really like just the aspect of ancient Rome in this. This was one of those movies that goes back to the Cecil B. DeMille films, your Ten Commandments feel, the epics of Cleopatra, movies of that nature. And they've tried to do that. We continue to get people to try to do it, and it doesn't work. But he hit it just right. He had the ability to do massive sets, some CG for the Colosseum. He didn't overdo scenes. It was a movie that was character-driven, unlike Pompeii, which was just explosions. Seriously, this movie, it's not about the effects. It was about the storyline, and you love this character, and it's Russell Crowe on his finest, I think.
Well, and I agree, and I think the visual effects truly served the story.
Exactly.
You didn't notice it. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, look, they've got the Colosseum. But the Colosseum looked right, and it served as a great backdrop to where the heck we were supposed to be.
Exactly. I mean, are you not entertained?
Exactly.
Right, so we've got to go with that. Now, that's 11. We have one more. Dan, what do you got?
And this is the one that I think has kind of set the standard when it comes to comic book films, and that's The Dark Knight. I'll never forget.
Howard the Duck. Yeah, Dark Knight.
So The Dark Knight, set the bar for what you can make a comic book movie be. Batman Begins was great. I think everybody was on board with the world we were entering with Gotham and the tone that Christopher Nolan was going for. But from that opening scene when they are going into the bank and they're killing each other off, and you see the Joker that first time come out, and you realize, okay, this version of this character is unlike anything we've ever seen. You couldn't help but be captivated by it. And every scene Heath Ledger was in, he stole, and it saddens you as a fan of just a film that we didn't get to see more of that, because I don't think I've ever seen a performance, especially in the world of villains, like that. And for me, I can't have a list without throwing The Dark Knight in there.
And the thing about that is such a shame as well, the problem with so many superhero movies up to this point, even the original Batman, hey, look, here's a villain. Let's kill him in the end. A villain that you've had 40, 50 years of comic history, and you never were able to bring him back. This is the one time they did not do it. And it was so ripe to put him in the third film. And then sadly he was able, and no one should. They did the right thing by not recasting and having someone try to take that way about it. At least now with the new Suicide Squad, they've got a different take on it with a different actor in a slightly different world. So that is our list. That is the deserted dozen of films that we could watch over and over again.
So I know, Greg, you're our music guy. I know you've got to have some kind of bands that you want us to listen to, or at least albums.
Yeah, that's true. So if I could get an iPod or an iPhone that for some reason has no service, but I have plenty of power so I can listen to my music, I've got a list of, so we did dozens, so I'll do a half dozen. I'll do 6 albums.
That's 6, right? Okay.
Yes, math, because math. You need to watch Big Hero 6 again and learn the importance of an education. Anyway, so I picked 6, and again, these are not my, some of them are, but it's not like my greatest albums of all time. But what do I want to listen to over and over again on a desert island? Number 1 would be my favorite album of all time. It's Crash by Dave Matthews Band. And he's divisive. A lot of people love him. Some people hate him. One of those things that it hit on all cylinders with Under the Table and Dreaming, and I loved it. And the fact that the guy was not playing basic chords during his verses, he has these intricate guitar riffs. So when Crash came out, I was excited for it, and you start hearing So Much to Say at the beginning, just insane guitar pieces. I was sold. There's jams in there, but I love it. It's an incredible album for me in a time in my life, so that is number 1. That would be number 1 on all lists for me.
Cool.
Second is I go with King by O.A.R. O.A.R. is another band that I absolutely adore. They've got a lot of albums. This is maybe one of the more recent ones, but I feel like there are a ton of tracks, so that's good. More horns in this album, and I love horn lines with stuff. So to me, it would be perfect for a desert island. They've got some tropical vibe on a couple tunes too, so it'd be perfect. So King by O.A.R. Then really to hit that vibe, Michael Franti and Spearhead's album, The Sound of Sunshine. I love everything Michael Franti does. Extra positive with the messages, wonderful beats, just inspiring music, and this one would be perfect. I love it. I listen to it every summer. It's definitely in heavy rotation. Or in the dead of winter when you need that boost, you can't get enough vitamin D. This album is like your audio version of vitamin D.
We're gonna get plenty of that on this island.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to shift gears to a true classic album, I would go Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones have a ton of great albums, but this one is phenomenal. I had a conversation with someone recently that said it reminds me of just wanting to grab a bottle of whiskey and hide under a table at like a bar and just polish the thing off and then pass out and wake up the next day. That's kind of what this album is. It's got some bluesiness to it. It's definitely their take on American music, but they do it well. They do that whiskey-soaked blues very well. Cool. And the Stones have great songs like Tumbling Dice on this album. It's a wonderful album. Next one would be Brian Setzer Orchestra's Guitar Slinger. Now, if you don't know a lot about Brian Setzer, he was the lead singer and guitarist for the Stray Cats. At the time when I heard this album, I didn't know that. Okay. So I'm at a Best Buy when they used to sell CDs, and they would play them. And I hear this song that just blows me away because it sounds like they have an entire orchestra going and this ripping guitar part. And so I go and they have this little kiosk that actually they would put Velcro, the CD that they were playing in the store, on there. Never heard of it. Immediately went and bought it. It blew my mind. Wow. So you've got Brian Setzer doing rockabilly stuff with this hollow body Gretsch, which is a very signature guitar sound. It's just outstanding. With all this in this orchestra, it's not a band that has 1 or 2 trumpet players. He's got a row of trumpet players, sax players, stand-up bass. It's phenomenal, and the track I heard, and you should check out, is actually a cover of Stevie Ray Vaughan's House is Rockin'. And that's the first thing I heard. Trumpet hits this high F note. It just about blows your mind. It's a great album, and so I would have to have that because it just changed the way I looked at music. I'm a trumpet player and a guitarist, and so that really hit both sides of music for me. And finally, one, I won't talk much about it because I have before, but the Dirty Guv'nahs, I've listened to them so much lately. Right now, if I was on an island, I'd have to throw one of theirs on, and it would be Somewhere Beneath These Southern Skies. Talked about them before. That's my favorite album of theirs, and it's great. So, yeah.
Sweet.
That's all the albums we got.
Yeah?
Yeah, so, all right. We might not know how to get off a desert island, but we know how to be entertained on a desert island.
So this week, we're not going to do recommendations. We kind of just spent the whole segment here showing you what you should watch and what you should listen to. So I think that's pretty well what we got this week. Greg, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter, gcompton007. Dan, how about yourself?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Dan Gaines. And please visit us on YouTube. Check out our Facebook page.
You can email us at rewindheroes@gmail.com. And until next time, be kind.
And please rewind.